I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, Brunning, Bruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Thursday. Week 5 is about to begin in about 20 minutes. We are going to be previewing all the games. As a reminder, this is the first week of buys. The Bears, the Packers, the Falcons, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are not playing this week, so you got to get them out of your lineups. Also, not on a bye, but pretty much not playing this week are the San Francisco 49ers, who are about to kick off against the Rams in Thursday Night Football, our first game. As a reminder, if you have any sit-start questions for the week, feel free to throw them in there. I am monitoring the comments, so we'll get to them as we talk about the 14 games we have this week. First game, maybe not the best game. San Francisco 3-1, the Rams 3-1. You'd like to have a good matchup here, but Brock Purdy has been ruled out. Ricky Pearsall has been ruled out. Juwan Jennings has been ruled out. George Kittle is on IR. Brandon Ayuk still on the PUP. So that means they are starting, unironically, Demarcus Robinson, who is only 1 week back from being suspended for a DUI, and also was a Ram last year, so some irony there. And Kendrick Bourne, who was a Patriot until he was released and then picked up. They do have your boy Sky Moore there waiting in the wings, and your other boy, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So my first question for you, Dennis, if you were Mac Jones, are you trusting any of these San Francisco 49er receivers?
So this is Robinson's first week in practice because he was suspended, so he couldn't practice with the team, but he's been in the league a long time, and I'm sure he's in decent shape. Mac probably has the best chemistry with Kendrick Bourne, who's been there. Outside of,
he had known him from New England too, so
yeah. And outside of Jake Tongas, who as a backup would have gotten probably most of his reps with Mac. Tongas is tight end 15 on the year, so he's playing pretty good. You know, my one note I wrote in here was, we're probably going to see 30, 35 touches for McCaffrey. But he had 28 touches on Sunday. So honestly, I don't think we're probably going to see less McCaffrey than we expect, in part because they did go out and get Brian Robinson, who's a serviceable NFL running back. Replacement quality starter probably is how I would phrase it. But they're probably going to be down to the Rams. The defense doesn't have all their pieces. The Rams are probably going to get out to a lead. So I would expect probably in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 touches for McCaffrey, maybe even 15. And then we'll see more Brian Robinson. If you're looking for a shot-in-the-dark flex play, who, because it's Thursday night, you would put him in the actual running back slot, Brian Robinson is probably somebody that will give you a 8, 10, maybe 12-point floor this week.
Yeah, I did take a shot in the dark, and the injury situation combined with buys has really thinned out waivers if you play in bigger leagues. So if you were hurting, I did actually put Kendrick Bourne in 1 or 2 leagues. He's my YOLO flex because YOLO apparently, but it's not looking pretty. On the flip side for the Rams, they have been using the passing game really well, but I want to talk about Kyren Williams, a guy we like. He hasn't been bad. He's had at least 10 points in PPR points in each of his games, but only running back 18, only has 303 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, only 8 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown. That's probably where adding Devontae Adams and the PPR god Puka Nacua has really hurt him the most. No Tyler Higbee tonight, so maybe that opens up more touches. But how are you feeling about Kyren?
I think his ceiling is probably low end 1, like RB 11, 12 range, which is down from, RB 5, 6, 7, 8, where he's lived the last couple of years. Probably more likely top 16 running back, top 15 running back on the year. But Blake Corum is starting to take more touches, more snaps. Corum is up to about a 30% snap share. He's shown some explosiveness. They're very similar backs. Outside of Corum is faster, but Williams has exceptional vision. Williams' snaps are down to 74% from 87% last year, which tracks for a Sean McVay team. Corum came in as a rookie last year and didn't get a lot of opportunity. Now he's a year in the offense. McVay's let him earn some trust, going to give him some more opportunity. And, Kyren Williams was a classic hashtag 2 to 3 year window guy, 5'10", 199 pounder. So the volume is eventually going to catch up with him. And I think we see, Corum's snaps rise a little bit. I don't think we'll see a takeover this year, but I would probably have Kyren Williams as a middling, mid to high RB2.
I am taking the Rams in this one.
So am I. Got it just in under the start. Or is it an 8:15 start?
It should be an 8:15 start, but who the heck knows? I am monitoring, so we will give you score updates throughout. I do have that window open. We are still having international games. We switched to the first of 3 consecutive weeks in London. Still the Minnesota Vikings, who, they may want to just leave J.J. McCarthy there, honestly, in Europe, even when they come back. They are 2-2. We will have Carson Wentz again. They are at the 1-3 Cleveland Browns, sending London nothing but our best. For the Vikings, how are we feeling about TJ Hawkinson? He had a big game in week 3 when they finally put Wentz in and the offense opened up a little bit. But Jordan Addison came back last week. He was back down again. 3 of his 4 games, he's had less than 8 fantasy points. I don't think it's a particularly great matchup against a good Browns defense. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, he's tight end 18 on the year. Had 5 targets last year. He was, he was behind Xavier Scott in targets last week. So I'm nervous about his usage. When you consider, Wentz and McCarthy are both low-end quarterbacks at this points in their career. Wentz is descending, and while McCarthy may be ascending, he's missed a full season with injury, came back, played 3 games, and then went out with an injury, now missing his 2nd game. So it's hard to get chemistry when you're missing time. I like Hawkinson's talent a ton. He's just behind Jefferson, and now Jordan Addison is back, and they want to run the ball. Jordan Mason had 16 carries last week against a good Eagles defense. So they have to get targets to somewhere. Wentz threw the ball 46 times, which I think was more than McCarthy threw it in the first 3 weeks combined. 350 and 2 with 2 interceptions. So he was productive. I'm not holding out hope that that's going to be the case against this Browns defense. The Browns have a stellar defense. And last week, the Vikings lost both of their offensive tackles. I don't remember if they're back this week or if they're still banged up, but
let me look. I think they are still out. And I think they lost even more offensive linemen because There's a couple of Vikings fans in our chat, and they have a lot to say. So guard Donovan Jackson is out.
He was out
Brian
last week.
O'Neill is out.
And Christian Darrisaw. Darrisaw went out last week. I don't know if
I don't see him listed. Ryan Kelly is questionable.
So going up against that Browns defensive line, it could be brutal.
Looks like their other guard, Michael Juergens, is questionable too. So they lost at least one starting guard, one tackle, and everybody else is beat up and questionable. McCarthy officially listed as doubtful, but everything I've seen says they don't expect him to play. He hasn't been practicing at all. So for the Browns, they decided 4 games was enough of a sample for Joe Flacco. They've turned it over to the rookie Dylan Gabriel. What are you expecting to see there?
So Gabriel had a pretty good college career. Started, I think 64 games in college. He's not inexperienced. Played for 3 different teams. So he's had some adversity, had to learn some different offenses. Good passer, maybe not the biggest arm. He had 155 to 32 touchdown to interception ratio in college, completed 65% of his throws at the college level. Flacco this year was only completing 55% or 58% of his passes and had a 2-to-6 touchdown to interception ratio. So it makes sense that they were going to do something, if for no other reason than to say, look, we got to see what we got, because this defense, if you watch the NFL for any length of time like we have, it don't take long for an exceptional offense or defense to lose pieces, get injured, break down, lose players to, big contracts, to the salary cap. So it's hard to say what that defense will look like next year. We know Myles Garrett will be there, and they got a couple young players, but it could very easily be what happened to the Ravens over the last 2 or 3 seasons. They went from being exceptional to not. Dylan Gabriel also, he completed a high percentage of passes in preseason, 25 of 37 for 272, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He's got plus mobility. It'd be nice if they had maybe some more premier pass catchers, but Quinshon Judkins has looked good. He took over that backfield, and he's going to go in and he's going to grind the ball. There'll be weeks when Judkins isn't efficient, but he's going to tote the ball. He's going to play hard. I like Judy. I like Bond. The tight ends, it seems like Fannin, if you have to start one of these tight ends, it looks like it's trending towards Fannin being the guy. But neither one of them are giving you very high production.
I am taking the Browns.
So am I. It's crazy.
I know Minnesota just hasn't looked that great. 1-3 Las Vegas Raiders at the 3-1 Indianapolis Colts. I want to talk about Geno Smith. Only completing 63.8% of his passes, which is below his career average. Only 948 yards, 6 touchdowns, but 7 interceptions. What's interesting when you look at his splits is he's actually been semi-dreadful at home, sub 200 yards in both those starts, and been better on the road, where he has 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. They are on the road this week, but I feel like he's hard to trust. What are your thoughts on Geno?
So they lost Colton Miller, which is a bad sign for Geno and for Genti. Genti broke out last week, had a monster week, and a lot of that production came behind Colton Miller. So that's going to be a situation to monitor. Geno needs to settle into some of those interceptions have been, kind of YOLO deep balls. He needs to settle in with Jacoby Myers and work the intermediate area. Brock Bowers, while technically, I think they're listing him as not injured anymore. He's still wearing that big brace. I think he's still recovering from that knee getting banged up. I'm concerned that the O-line woes are going to put Geno in peril, and the defense not being great is going to put them behind, and Geno's going to have to throw. Geno's going to force it. And we saw before his renaissance, part of the issue with Geno Smith was when he got too much pressure, he made bad throws and led to interceptions, and that kind of ended his tenure with the Jets.
Brock Bowers is back on the injury report, did not practice at all today. They list him with a knee injury again. So, and Michael Mayer was a limited participant with a concussion. Max Crosby also a limited participant with a knee injury, so looking worse for the Raiders. For the Colts, meanwhile, a lot of talk has been about Daniel or Indiana Jones, as they're calling him. But I want to talk about Jonathan Taylor. The running back landscape has turned pretty savage between buys and horrific injuries. 414 yards in 4 games, averaging a little over 100 yards a game. Only 3 touchdowns that all came in one game, so that's been a little fluky, but he is getting some receiving work. 13 receptions in 4 games, has another touchdown there. Is Taylor kind of a top 12 option for you given the state of the position?
Yeah. I mean, giddy up. Let's go. He's the guy that when the passing game works, he gets opportunities to run the clock out, grind it out. And when the passing game doesn't work, he gets the opportunities because he's 6 foot tall and 230 pounds and is fast and powerful. And so he's the one that's going to bail that team out regardless of their situation. He's averaging almost 23 opportunities per game. He looks great. They don't have a handcuff. They don't have a complement. If something would happen, it would be all the rest of the backs on that team, splitting up the parts that are left from Jonathan Taylor not being in there. He's the guy there, and he's one of the sure things, I think, so far this season when it comes to the running game.
I am taking the Colts.
So am I.
Next up, we have the 1-3 Giants at the 0-4 New Orleans Saints. Just a banger of a game. No Malik Neighbors. He's on IR, tore his ACL. You figure could be bigger things for Wan'Dale Robinson, who was great last year and really good the first 2 weeks of this season, and Darius Slayton kind of a constant for them. But how are you approaching the Giants receivers?
Well, I'm hoping that Andrew Thomas stays healthy and that the offensive line can perform while Jackson Dart continues to get his feet under him. I think Wan'Dale Robinson's ADOT is going to start to come down. We were marveling, I think last week or the week before, how his ADOT went from like 4.4 last year to like 9.5 or something this year. I think it's going to start to come down. He's going to need to be more of the outlet guy, more intermediate, where Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt are going to be the guys that are doing the ball stuff. Theo Johnson is starting to step up a little bit, so that may add some variety to it. But yeah, I like Wan'Dale. I think if he feels like the volume guy, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if Wan'Dale is getting 10 targets or more and Slayton is in the 6-7 target area, maybe, with Wan'Dale catching 7 or 8 balls a game now, and Slayton being the 2, 3, 4 kind of catch guy, but possibly bigger yardage.
All right, well, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. They're 0-4. They've tried hard in some of these games. You get to this point in the season, and it's if not this matchup against a 1-3, not so great Giants team, when could they possibly get a win? I'll give you their schedule after this. They're home for the Patriots in week 6, then at the Bears, home for the Buccaneers, at the Rams, then at the Panthers November 9th, then home for the Falcons, at the Dolphins, at the Buccaneers, then home for the Panthers, Jets, at Titans, at Falcons. So maybe a little more opportunity down the back half, but a little bit of a rougher stretch. And, you know, I don't think they're not favorites here, which is really rough when you're at home against a 1-3 opponent. Where do you think the Saints get their wins, or do you think they get any wins?
You know, this could be the week. So I think the possibility exists. Did you realize the Saints offense has the 6th most first downs in the NFL? So
they've had more fight. I think that's why no one's, like we talk about the Titans and how dreadful they look, and the Jets have been really curious because they can't stop anything. I think the Saints have had fight. They've been in a few of these games. The last couple of weeks have not been pretty, but their first 2 games, I thought they looked better than I expected.
Yeah, so they got the 6th most first downs in the NFL this year through 4 games. The 10th most rushing yards. Go Alvin Kamara. He's still doing what he does. Spencer Rattler has a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio and the 14th highest completion percentage in the league. The offense, while not being great, they got to convert drives into scores. That's where they're falling short. But the defense gives up the 3rd most points in the NFL. They're essentially starting the game in a hole because the defense is bad. So to me, it feels like a team that's just got to keep doing what they're doing, and they'll catch a break here and there. New York isn't a terrific team. They just changed their quarterback. Dart is going to have some growing pains. While New York has maybe some more explosiveness so far this year, with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson, there is opportunity for that offense to put up some points, but the defense has got to start to make some plays for them. And maybe with a rookie quarterback this week making his 2nd start, this may be a chance for the defense to help them out and get them a win.
I'm going with the Giants.
I'm still taking the Giants too, but I almost went saying to be contrarian.
Well, I thought long and hard about it, but
I'm pulling for the Saints.
Next up, the 1-2-1 Dallas Cowboys at another winless team, the 0-4 New York Jets. No CeeDee Lamb again this week. We've seen Jake Ferguson is actually tight end 1 through 4 weeks. George Pickens is a top, I believe, 5 receiver through 4 weeks. But, the Jets' defense has been pretty friendly to opposing offenses. So do you have any interest in flexing either a Jalen Tolbert or KaVontae Turpin?
So Tolbert's wide receiver 78 and Turpin is wide receiver 45. So what you're hoping for is a big play. That's really what it is. Now, Tolbert has played 81% of the snaps through 4 weeks, and Turpin has played 61% of the offensive snaps. They're basically options 3 and 4 behind Pickens and Ferguson. But then Javonte Williams is playing very, very well too. So it's they're not without weapons. I think they may be down 3 or 4 O-linemen themselves this week, or maybe just a couple O-linemen.
You're talking about Dallas?
Yeah.
No one's been ruled out. Guyton's questionable with a concussion. Tyler Smith was questionable with knee. I guess Tyler Booker didn't play last week, has been out since then. So one of the Tylers they lost. The other 2 still listed as questionable. Neither practice, so that's a red flag, but can't be sure.
And the defense is bad. And so
I guess think neither practice Wednesday. They have not updated the Thursday practice reports.
They still are going to have to outscore their opponents because they're not going to win a defensive battle.
Well, fortunately,
If I
neither
had
of these teams has defense. So.
if I had to stick one of them in the lineup, I think I like Tolbert with the opportunities. He had 6 targets last week to Turpin's 4. So it feels like he's stepping more into the CeeDee Lamb vacated targets than Turpin is.
Meanwhile, for the Jets, the Cowboys defense hasn't been spectacular. Braylon Allen was put on IR. You and I mentioned on Tuesday weren't wild about what we've seen from Isaiah Davis. So could it be a good wheels up game for Breece Hall?
I think so. I think this game sets up very nicely for Breece Hall. Let me see here. The Cowboys give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, and they give up the 4th most receptions and 3rd most receiving yards to running backs. So it seems tailor-made for Breece Hall. I'm curious what their number is against quarterbacks. Oh, they give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks and the 6th most. I bet that hissing sounds great on the microphone. The 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So Justin Fields could be in for a big game as well. And it's a super narrow funnel in New York. It's Fields, it's Hall, it's Garrett Wilson. And even last week, the guy who got into the mix was Mason Taylor. So if you have, one of the 2 or 3 Jets top tier fantasy options, it sure feels like they can give you production.
And the good news for you, 3 plays, already 3 touches for Christian McCaffrey. Two receptions for 30 yards. Yeah.
What's that?
2 receptions for 30 yards, 1 carry for 4 yards. They're driving the ball. I am taking the Cowboys in this one.
I'm taking the Jets.
Jets have to win sometime. The 2-2 Denver Broncos at the 4-0 Philadelphia Eagles. Dennis, we know we like Courtland Sutton, but we've seen some big flashes from both Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. Some people may be looking at having to make some tough depth plays for flex options this week. How do you feel about those 2 guys?
So Franklin is tied with Courtland Sutton for the team lead in targets and receptions. And so I feel better going there. It seems like Mims was the guy the first week or 2, and then Franklin has surpassed him. Mims wide receiver 48, Franklin wide receiver 34. It feels like they're going to separate a little bit. I think Franklin is going to get a little bigger share. With R.J. Harvey starting to come on and play well at the running back, J.K. Dobbins still playing well. It feels like Mims now he's battling Harvey and Dobbins, and who's their 3rd wide receiver or 4th wide receiver?
Pat Bryant sometimes comes in, but it's probably Evan Ingram and Evan Ingram that tries to get in there and get some targets.
Yeah. So, I'm probably leaning on Franklin because he's getting the volume out of the 2, or being on the field the most out of the 2. Mims is probably more of a YOLO kind of guy. You're hoping he gets an end around and takes it a long way, or catches a deep ball.
Meanwhile, for the Eagles, the passing game has been a mess, and now they face that Denver secondary that essentially smothered Jamar Chase and T. Higgins last week. Do you have any thought to sitting A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith?
Yeah, depends on what my options are, but it looks rough for them right now. If the Philadelphia Eagles are not having to try to outscore a team, so if the Broncos, let's say the Broncos put up 17 points, it's not going to be a good game for Brown or Smith. But if the Broncos can put up 34 points, then Philly's got to start to throw the ball. And then then something's going to happen. The two guys are just too good for them not to be productive, even against Pat Surtain and I forget who the other guy is, the Iowa guy.
I'll think of it. Riley Moss.
Yeah. So those guys are great, but I think that Smith and Brown are equally as good, and they'll make some plays. They're just not getting any volume because the Eagles aren't throwing the ball. So if you think that it's going to be, a 33-28 sort of ball game, then yeah, you're probably going to feel a lot better starting Brown and or Smith. But if you think it's going to be a lower scoring game, 21-17 kind of game, then it's a little bit, then you get nervous. Then you start looking at your other options.
I am still taking the Eagles in this one.
So am I.
1-3 Miami Dolphins at the 1-3 Carolina Panthers. Dennis Darren Waller came back in week 4, caught only 3 passes, 2 of them for touchdowns. Tyreek Hill is gone. Are we in on Darren Waller against the Panthers?
Yes.
Yeah.
What he played, I thought I wrote 28% of the snaps last week. He didn't get a ton of volume. He looked good. I don't think the Dolphins are going to use him much blocking. And with Tyreek Hill out now, somebody has to start to take that volume. I think that Waller's snaps are going to keep climbing. Because even last week, with him having a really great fantasy day, Tyreek Hill, Nick Westbrook-Akini, Malik Washington, Julian Hill, and even the fullback Alec Ingold all played more snaps than Darren Waller. And I think Ingold was the only one that Waller outtouched. Maybe Julian Hill. But with Hill out, Waller's got a great opportunity to steal targets. Because it's Achane, it's Waddle, and then what's next? Is it Waller? Is it Malik Washington? Those are really your next 2 best options. And if you need 2 yards, it's going to be Ollie Gordon. So yeah, I think Waller is a plug and play. If you're in a redraft league and you were able to go out and get him last week or even this week, he may even be flex worthy this week.
San Francisco 49ers take the 7-0 lead, scoring on their opening drive. Mac Jones 5 for 5, 77 yards, 2 receptions for Jake Tonjes, including the touchdown. Christian McCaffrey already 5 touches. So maybe they are going to put him on a heavy pace. For the Carolina Panthers, I want to talk about Chuba Hubbard.
10 days off.
That's true. Chuba Hubbard was a pleasant surprise for us last year, a guy we're rooting for, but only 53 carries so far this season, but only 217 yards through 4 games. Has caught 13 passes for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns, which has helped some for fantasy. But are you a little concerned about his productivity in what has been a sluggish offense?
Yeah, and then he picked up a calf injury too, so that's kind of led to him having his lowest snap count of the season last week. But this is why they signed Rico Dowdle. They need somebody that they wanted to make sure they had an insurance policy, and to be honest, you could probably do worse than Dowdle. He had an okay year last year for Dallas, and I think he went to Carolina sold on the concept of helping build something because they're clearly in a rebuild. So it's an injury situation to monitor, and hopefully you have an alternative to Chuba Hubbard if he has to sit, or if we start to hear a lot of talk about, well, it'll be a 50-50 split or something, because if they start openly talking about it, it could be, that's going to be 50-50 and it ends up being, 65-35 Dowdle, and, or Hubbard goes out there and aggravates the calf more and ends up, playing three snaps and going out. So it definitely is something to be concerned about. But he's RB15 on the year, which is pretty good. And, if you roster him, you're okay with him being an RB2. I don't think you really drafted him to be an RB1, but you got to make sure he's playing and healthy.
I'm going to take the Dolphins.
I'm going off my rocker and sticking with my Panthers pick from the preseason.
I don't think it's off your rocker. There are a couple of these that are matchups of pitiful teams that could honestly go either way. Speaking of pitiful teams that could go either way, 1-3 Houston Texans at the 1-3 Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore has not had anything approaching a defense this season, so could this be the big game we've been waiting for CJ Stroud?
It sure looks like it's lining up that way. I mean, the Ravens ended up being down 7 defensive starters last week by the time the game ended. They put a couple defensive linemen on IR. Roquan Smith's going to be out, though Teddy Buchanan's playing pretty well. But the Ravens have given up the most points in the NFL, and they've given up the most fantasy points to running backs and the most receptions to running backs. So this looks like it's shaping up to be a Sir Woodrow Marks kind of game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson downgraded to doubtful, not likely to play this week, probably not likely to play for a couple weeks. They went and got Cooper Rush this offseason, who we've seen have some success as a backup, but how are you feeling about him in this game?
So whereas the Ravens give up the most points in the NFL, the Texans give up the least points in the NFL. I am out on Ravens this week, as out as you can be. Like it's tough to they're gonna do something. There's a lot of talent around the quarterback, but Ronnie Stanley's banged up, one of the better left tackles in the game, and Cooper Rush, he's not a down the field thrower. It's going to be a tough game against a tough defense.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned some of their defensive injuries too. Marlon Humphrey, a corner, is doubtful. Matabukwe went on injured reserve. You're right. Roquan Smith is doubtful. Travis Jones, defensive tackle, questionable. Kyle Hamilton, questionable, has not been practicing with a groin injury. Odafe Owe is questionable with an injury. Nate Wiggins and Chidobe Awuzie, their other 2 corners, have not been practicing and are both questionable. It is looking grim. Ronnie Stanley, there isn't really a practice report. Questionable, has you mentioned the ankle injury. It is looking grim. I am taking the Texans.
I am switching from the Ravens to the Texans as well.
And the Ravens just might be that, snake bit team this year where injuries and everything that can go wrong goes wrong, because a 1-4 start is going to, if they lose, would be really tough to come back from to be a meaningful contender.
So the way the AFC North is shaped up, speaking for myself, I felt like this was the year Mike Tomlin had a losing record. And they're going to win the game.
Yeah, he's cruising. Yeah, that's screwed up. Another winner of a game, the 0-4 Tennessee Titans at the 2-2. We don't need any running backs to play games. Arizona Cardinals. For the Titans, what are we doing with Cam Ward? He is QB 34 on the season through 4 weeks. And I will remind you, there are only 32 NFL teams. I'll also give you a couple of the guys who are above him in the fantasy rankings. Joe Flacco, who just got benched. Jake Browning, who we called one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Mac Jones, who has only played in 2 of those 4 games. Marcus Mariota, who has only played in 2 of those 4 games. Brock Purdy, also only played in 2 of those 4 games. Carson Wentz, who we just had a good laugh about, who has only played in 2 of those games. And Russell Wilson, who actually also has already been benched. That does not speak well of the famously we ass Cam Ward. I don't see any world in which I would consider playing him even in Superflex on bye weeks. How about you?
Yeah, it's he's a sit moving forward. the team is a hot mess, and it may be a short stay for Brian Callahan. You know, teams, on one hand, I'm like, well, yeah, it looks awful. You got to make a change. But on the other hand, when you go into a rebuild, it can be very ugly for a couple seasons. And you got a brand new coach. He's in his second year now. So not brand new, but he's still kind of shiny. And
I think it's just you would expect to see some signs of progress, and their best game might have actually been week 1, and that gives me pause.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough season. You know, they're going to be picking at the top this year too, and they should be taking offensive linemen when they do.
Meanwhile, for Arizona, they took some offensive linemen too. I don't know if they took the right ones.
Take more.
For Arizona, James Conner was lost for the year last week. The Trey Benson era lasted one inglorious week. He is now on IR at least 4 to 6 weeks, they said, with a knee injury. So Amari DeMarcado was already there. They have elevated Michael Carter, who is allegedly going to start in the predominant running role. How are you feeling about those two guys?
So it's weird that Carter jumped off of the practice squad and over Bam Knight. It feels like DeMarcado has a role, and Michael Carter probably he felt stylistically a little more similar to DeMarcado than he did to Bam Knight, and maybe it's because his name is Bam Knight. I expect him to be a tough physical runner, and of the 3 running backs, I think Knight is that. I would expect that they think that Carter can give them a little bit of explosiveness that Knight isn't going to be able to give them. DeMarcado will be in essentially the same role he was in last week. He'll be the third down, 4-minute pass catching back. And then they'll rotate Carter and Knight and see which one of them can get anything done. And then Kyler Murray's going to do what Kyler Murray does.
I'm still taking the Cardinals.
Yeah, if it wasn't the Titans, I
probably
wouldn't. But
the Cardinals have had kind of a soft schedule. It's helping them a little. The 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks. One of the best games actually on the Week 5 slate. Bucky Irving in a walking boot. They haven't ruled him out. He hasn't even been downgraded as doubtful. He's not practicing, but they said they were going to evaluate his pain tolerance on Friday. Does that give you any pause heading into the weekend?
Very much so. Very much so. At least in the short term. We've seen them elevate Sean Tucker to a prominent role, and he'd be very productive. Rachaad White was the guy there until Bucky Irving took the job from him like a schoolyard bully. So they've got enough running back depth that I don't think they have to be careless with Bucky Irving's help. Bucky is the best of the 3 running backs that the Buccaneers have. So if he's got a bad ankle and he's in a walking boot on Thursday still, give him a week off, let him get healthy. You've got Chris Godwin coming back and stepping back into a good role, Emeka Egbuka, and then you can piece together the tight end and the wide receiver 3. Let Sean Tucker and Rachaad White handle the job this week, and then get Bucky back healthy.
Meanwhile, on the other side, we've seen an interesting split between Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Walker seemingly the more efficient runner of the two, but when they are both active, it seems like they favor Charbonnet in the red zone, which can be dreadful for fantasy. How are you approaching these two backs?
Yeah, that's a tough situation because I'm not sure that Charbonnet is actually the more powerful runner. But what I am sure is that Walker wants to bounce, still likes to bounce everything outside if he can. And Charbonnet will run to the hole, whether it's there or not, and use his 225 pounds to push the pile versus Walker at 209. With that speed and elusiveness, he likes to show that off. I think Charbonnet has been a little more efficient in the passing game. You can play either one of them. It just sucks because they play both of them pretty evenly. And then it comes down to like, who's going to get the touchdown? And it seems like Charbonnet is the guy that's 70% of the time getting the touchdown. Or he gets, they may have 6 pass targets to the running backs, and Charbonnet gets 5 of them.
Yeah. I went back and forth. I'm going to take the Buccaneers here.
So am I.
Next up, the 3-1 Detroit Lions at the 2-2 Cincinnati Bengals. Amon-Ra St. Brown doing what we expect. So are the backs. I want to talk about Jameson Williams. He had a very strong 2024, his first 1,000-yard season, but it feels like he's a little boom bust still. He had a great game against Chicago because he caught 2 huge passes for 108 yards. Last week, he got quite a few targets, but only a couple big ones. How do you feel when you're approaching whether to put him in your lineup?
All right, just so we're clear, Jameson Williams is a little boom bust like I'm a little bald, okay?
Only when you look down.
So Jameson, he can put up a 20-point game on 4 targets. We've seen it happen. He's 4th on the team in targets and 4th on the team in catches, 2nd on the team in yards, and he's averaging 21.4 yards per catch. It's just some games, it's the volume. He's averaging 5 targets a game and 2.5 catches a game. That's not a very good catch rate. Dare I say, awful. But man, he can make some plays. He's a low-end flex guy because of the volatility.
Meanwhile, for the Bengals, Higgins-Chase, real rough game on Monday night. They're going against a Detroit defense that has been markedly better since week 1. However, a couple of Detroit defenders put on IR or out this week, including a corner in DJ Reed. How are you feeling about the Bengals receivers here?
I'm a little nervous. Jake Browning has not met my mediocre expectations of him. I didn't think he was going to come in and be Joe Burrow 2.0, but I thought he'd be a little better than he has been. Now, that being said, I don't think I'd put most of the blame on the offensive line. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, there's this still shot of a drop back last week, and I forget who they played last week, but it's like six blockers, 4 of them that only rushed 3, 4 of them blocked 1 guy, and both tackles got beat on the outside to give up a sack. It looked absolutely awful.
And Detroit can rush the passer.
They can. They have pass rushers. They can get after it. Higgins is probably the one that makes me the most nervous. He's only got 1 week over 6.5 points this year, 6.5 PPR points. And you can't live with that. That is he's wide receiver 60 on the year. Chase is at least wide receiver 18. He's getting a little bit done, but until they can protect the quarterback, it's not really going to get better. I will say Chase Brown, after having he have 10 carries for 3 yards in week 3, he had 10 carries for 40 yards last week, so he kind of picked up a little bit. But they need to figure out how to protect the quarterback and get better players. It will be a travesty if in the offseason they don't spend 50% of their salary cap they have on free agent offensive linemen and all of their draft picks on offensive linemen. I would consider it a travesty.
I'm taking the Lions.
Yeah, preseason I'd pick the Bengals, but here we are. I'm going Lions.
2-2 Washington Commanders at the 3-1 Los Angeles Chargers. Jaden Daniels is back off the injury report. Will start. Will not have Terry McLaurin or Noah Brown. Deebo Samuel also banged up. So what are you expecting from Jaden Daniels?
Well, he was QB 11 through 2 weeks. So Deebo Samuel's going to do what he does. Zach Ertz is consistent as ever. Luke McCaffrey is starting to step up. I don't know that I'm ready to hang my hat there yet. They do have a three-headed monster at running back with McNichols and Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt. But the Chargers give up the second most rushing yards to quarterbacks. Now, I think Daniels, I don't think he's trying to run as much as he did last year. But, man, sometimes if they're going to give it to you and you're the kind of athlete he is, maybe you got to take it. So I would expect a good ground game from Daniels this week. And then it's going to be Deebo and McCaffrey. And I don't remember who the other
Jalen Lane.
Jalen Lane. And he's looked okay.
And Ertz.
Yep.
Yes, that Ertz.
No
meanwhile, for the Chargers, their offensive line really got put through the ringer last week, and that really hampered the offense. Joe Alt is doubtful, not likely to play. Mekhi Becton is questionable, really a toss-up whether he can play. What do you expect from this offense with all these offensive line woes?
Well, the Commanders' defense is middle of the pack versus running backs, but they give up the third lowest receptions to running backs. So it feels like even with backup tackles, they may be able to get Omarion Hampton going a little bit. The Commanders give up the eighth most fantasy points to wide receivers, and with Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen, and unfortunately the season Ladd McConkey's having, the opportunity is there. They give up the largest or the highest yards per catch to wide receivers. So this may be where McConkey breaks out a little. I know that Johnston's probably the fastest of their receivers, but the deep ball isn't his jam. That's not what he's good at. But they may be able to get the ball to him short and let him run. That's what they've been doing this year. Johnston's, he's having a breakout season. And I think right now you ride that dog until it don't quit.
I am taking the Chargers in this one.
Me too.
Sunday Night Football, the 2-2 New England Patriots at the 4-0 Buffalo Bills. Dennis, we keep waiting for them to realize TreVeyon Henderson is great, but even in a plus matchup against the Panthers last week where the team scored 42 points, and the previous week the other running backs combined for 3 fumbles, including fumbles in the red zone. They only gave Henderson 7 carries. He did turn it into 32 yards and a touchdown, which is sadly his best game of the season. Is he even flex worthy with confidence at this point?
So he's not getting the snaps right now. He played 31% of the snaps last week, 46% week 3, 32% week 2, and 35% in week 1.
So he actually played less snaps the week after everybody in the backfield gave the ball away.
Right. It was crazy. And you would have thought in a game where they were just blowing him out, it was a perfect game to let your rookie get some work. Let him get out there, let him play, just let him go. And they didn't. I don't know, man. He's got the juice. He's a great pass catcher, good pass blocker. He's a good runner. Maybe you don't want to run him, off guard every play, but get him in some space and let him do some work.
Yeah.
Whatever. Go Josh McDaniels.
Meanwhile, for the Bills, we like Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman the best among their wide receivers, but it still feels like it's a little hit or miss about how many points and opportunities you're going to get. Are you still at least starting them as flexes?
Yeah, with Shakir at wide receiver 30 and Coleman at wide receiver 35. They're both flex worthy. And the difference between that is 3.7 points, which is Shakir has 2 touchdowns, Coleman has 1. Coleman is actually getting the higher volume of the two. He's got more receptions, more yards. Just Shakir has the extra touchdown. I think we're going to continue to see it rotate. I think Coleman will spread the gap a little bit. And then Dalton Kincaid is having a good year, and James Cook is doing James Cook things. Dude is in the kitchen grilling it up hard this year. So I think they're both I think Coleman probably has a low end wide receiver 2 ceiling this year. And Shakir probably has a high end wide receiver 3 ceiling, but I don't know that they both get there in the same season.
I am taking the Bills.
So am I.
Still 7-0 49ers now into the second quarter. Already 12 touches for Christian McCaffrey, but your boy Brian Robinson has gotten 3 carries already. Only 6 yards, but he's gotten out there. Monday Night Football, the 2-2 Kansas City Chiefs at the 3-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. For a minute there, Tyquan Thornton was all the rage, but now that Xavier Worthy is back, Hollywood Brown is healthy, Juju has his role, and we're about to see Rashee Rice has the Tyquan Thornton train derailed. I know he got a touchdown last week. Some people saying, 3 weeks in a row, he's still catching touchdowns, but that was kind of a fluke. Only 2 targets, ended up getting that 1 touchdown late. I'm not feeling like he's a guy I'm even considering for my lineup.
Yeah, if you didn't sell him after week 2, he's going to just spend his time on the end of your bench. Worthy's the wide receiver 1 there. We'll see if he can hold on to that when Rice comes back. But he was second on the team in snaps for the wide receivers. He led them in targets, receptions, yards, and he was the one getting the jet sweeps. So Worthy is the guy that they want, at least until Rice gets back, that they want to get the ball to. Their running game is virtually non-existent, and so they're relying on Xavier Worthy to provide explosiveness out of the backfield and down the field, and he did it in his first week back. So,
on the other side, I want to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. We've been waiting, maybe a little bit of a sign of a pickup, a little more efficiency last week. 7 targets, did catch 5 of them, only 49 yards. 32 targets this season in 4 games, which is great, 8 per game, but still only 12 receptions for 164 yards, no touchdowns. Are you feeling any better about Brian Thomas?
Not this week. The Chiefs have the 8th best pass defense and give up the 7th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. And Trevor Lawrence is 31st in completion percentage in the NFL. So that seems kind of like a recipe for George Karlaftis to eat. And if you're not familiar, he's a defensive end for the Chiefs, so it's not good for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It just, Thomas has a lot of talent. Trevor Lawrence isn't getting it done at the level they need him to. And then Parker Washington seems to have pushed Travis Hunter aside because they need Hunter on defense. Brenton Strange is probably the one guy outside of Travis Etienne that you're comfortable starting on this team. I think Thomas is going to be fine by season's end, but you're going to have to sit through these growing pains right now.
I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
So am I.
One more update now, 14-0 San Francisco. Just looking at that Rams -7.5 point spread and saying, hold my beer. Christian McCaffrey already 5 receptions, 44 yards and a touchdown. Mac Jones 11 of 13, 131 and 2 touchdowns. So if you took a YOLO flex or a super flex start on him, you are feeling pretty good. That'll do it for the Week 5 preview. Dennis, if people have a lot of time to fill while they're mourning all the bets they put on the Rams and the over, what can they do?
They can head over to your favorite podcast platform hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. Give us a subscribe. Give us a like.
We appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of tonight's game, and we will see you on Tuesday.